Hi, welcome to the Macabre Emporium. You may or may not have listened to our teaser that we released a short time ago, but if you haven't, welcome to the Macabre Emporium. This will be just an introduction and not a full-on episode. We will tell you a little about us and our goal with our podcast. With that said, let's get started.
We wanted to start a podcast together. For me, at least in the true crime genre. You can only listen to John Wayne Gacy, Ted Bundy, Richard Ramirez, and David Berkowitz so many times before you haven't heard anything new. So before we get too far into the rest of the details of our show, let us tell you a little bit about ourselves.
David and I have been together for a little over 7 years. I won't get into a specific location, but we are from somewhere in Indiana. Before we talked about wanting to start this new adventure, we enjoyed collecting vinyl records, which we still do, and playing horror-themed tabletop games. And now I will let David tell you a little bit about himself.
I'm David, and I've always been a little bit, different from the rest of my family. I remember being interested in ghosts and cryptids as far as back as first grade. I'm pretty sure one little known movie franchise called Ghostbusters sparked this interest. I remember one of the first nonfiction books I had read or wanted was about the unexplained and ghost stories. Be it at the public library or the school library, I remember always looking to see what books on ghosts, UFOs, or monsters were there that I haven't read yet. Music has always been a big part of my life. Sarah, my other half and co-host of this podcast, can confirm that not many people can beat me in a friendly game of Name That Tune. I have always had a strong love for video games from a young age, as most men of my age have been growing up with video games most of their life. You were either brought up in a Nintendo home or a Sega home. I was brought up in a Nintendo home. One of my favorite video game franchises of all time is Fallout, and then the Assassin's Creed series is a close second. I have taken up model railroading off and on a few times in my life. I'm also a barbecue enthusiast. A meme that I'm sure most of us have read by now. At the age of 35, men must choose to either get into smoking meats or the history of World War II. I am positive that Sarah is thankful that I chose barbecue.
I am. Smoke brisket, not meth.
That's very true for our county. Some of the podcasts that inspired me to start this podcast with Sarah are Time Suck with Dan Cummins and Sorry, Sarah, you know I have to do this. To anybody that might be listening that is a fan of Dan Cummins, hail Nimrod and glory be the triple motherfucking M. Another show that I enjoyed listening to is Dark Windows Podcast, and also 7 Deadly Sinners with Rachel O'Brien. And now I'm going to let Sarah tell you a little about herself.
Before I talk about myself, quick thank you to Kevin Carlton from Dark Windows for helping David as much as he has with setting up this podcast, while helping us set up the podcast.
Yes, Kevin, and there I do plan on doing a topic from your guys' area on my list, hopefully sometime by the end of this year, as a thank you to your help.
On that note, I'm Sarah. I've always been a lover of Halloween, and yes, it is a lifestyle, not just a holiday. I've always been fascinated with the macabre and true crime. When I was a lot younger, my mom and dad used to have this massive king-sized waterbed with a large frame and headboard. The headboard has these little cubbies with a door on them, and that's where my mom used to stash her true crime books. And of course, I'd always take them to look at the black and white crime scene photos. My mom used to get shitty about me taking them, but I was a reader, and I still am. These days, I'm less into reading true crime and more into reading smut, the super spicy fiction. I dig fantasy, sci-fi, horror, psychological thrillers, and mysteries. The creepier the better. I love getting so absolutely absorbed into a book to the point that the high suspense moment literally have me on the edge of my seat, or so spooked that I have the hair on my arms standing at attention. Admittedly, I haven't picked up an actual true crime book in quite a while, but I believe that is the downfall of having access to podcasts. It's like Sports Center for creepy shit, all the highlights and none of the action. I used to listen to podcasts frequently, and then just kind of stopped. I got back into them about 5 years ago. Well, those and murder shows on TV, of course. A few of my favorite podcasts that I like to listen to is Morbid with Ash and Elena, A Little Bit Grim, which is 2 best friends also from Indiana, and a pod called My Funeral Home Stories, which is super ick and I love it. Definitely check all of them out if you haven't already. I enjoy the quintessential old lady hobby called cross-stitching, but I don't make old lady things. I make dark and creepy things like Pastel Baphomet, Universal Monsters Mansion. It's tedious and time-consuming, and I have a love-hate relationship with it. I'm currently on a break from working on anything right now. I will pick it back up eventually. I love hanging out with my best friend Dee and swinging in her backyard on the yard swing. We can literally sit back there and talk so much bullshit and laugh hysterically for hours. It also serves as a therapy room for the both of us. She's pretty much my therapist, and I'm hers. She's a nutcase, and together, we make two halves of a whole idiot. I've already asked her if she would be interested in joining us on the show one day, and her reply was a simple, "What'd she say, David?"
She said, "Fuck yup."
She sure did. I love my fur babies, I love my man, and I'm super excited to be starting this journey with David by my side.
By fur baby, she's referring to our 3 cats. They may or may not make an appearance on the show on their own schedule, be it jumping on our table, screaming in the background, normal cat sounds. To give our introduction to our 3 cats, just so you guys may or may not know who they are later on when they do decide to show up, we have our cranky old lady Ginger, which is a 19-year-old calico, our 2-year-old majestic idiot, our orange tabby that for some reason is cream-colored, Lugosi, and also, at 2 years old, the bougiest of the spooky cats, a black cat named Salem. I think probably one of the first times that the thought of us ever doing a podcast together was a sunset drive through the cornfields coming back home from visiting family. I believe I was telling you the dark backstory of the song Hey Man, Nice Shot by Filter.
I remember that, and I remember what you told me about that, but I'm pretty sure there's not a ton of people that know the background of it.
Oh, nah, guess. I mean, that was a big hit when it came out, but
yeah.
I'm sure they'd be shocked to find out what that song's actually about.
Yes.
It might be a topic at some point, so as a little teaser, I will tell you this. That story there is why there is a delay in live television. As I mentioned earlier, we will be covering some lesser-known stories of true crime. Sarah, have you ever heard of the name of Herbert William Mullen?
I have not, but I'm sure you're going to tell me eventually.
Well, I had a feeling you might tell me that, and I bet many people haven't either, as he was active during one of the other big 6 serial killers that are out there. But his motive is actually absolutely bonkers, and that's why I've chosen to cover.
Now, I understand the big 6 because I've, been in the true crime thing for a while. But for those that don't know what the big 6 is, can you explain it to them?
Yes. The big 6 might also be known as John Wayne Gacy, Richard Ramirez, David Berkowitz, Edmund Kemper, Ted Bundy, and Jeffrey Dahmer. And that's one of the things why we wanted to create this podcast. We wanted to change it up because, like I said at the beginning, you can only listen about those guys so many times and not hear any new information. But I also want to change it up from time to time with maybe, an urban legend or weird history of some sort.
As for now, as podcasting is new to the both of us, we're looking at releasing a new episode every other week, starting the first week of October, yes?
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking.
Okay. We are hoping to be able to release a new episode each week as we become more familiar with all of the behind-the-scenes work.
So I'm thinking it's about time we close up the Emporium for the day, Sarah. What do you think?
I agree.
So until next time,
remember to creep it real.